just the important thing is to know that each one of our journeys is unique and there's no one way through this because there's your way and it's not the same as anybody else's. But I caution folks to really avoid climbing someone else's ladder. Relish your own climb and don't be in a hurry to get to the top of your ladder because that's when it's time to go perfect your golf swing and not your brushstroke.
Welcome to the Bold Brush Show, where we believe that fortune favors the bold. Brush. My name is Laura Bayer, and I'm your host. For those of you who are new to the podcast, we are a podcast that covers art marketing techniques and all sorts of business tips specifically to help artists learn to better sell their work. We interview artists at all stages of their careers, as well as others who are in careers tied to the art world in order to hear their advice and insights. For today's episode, we sat down with Kim Lordier, a California-based pastel artist, mom, and former flight attendant whose deep love of nature and travel strongly influences her landscape work. She began drawing and painting animals as a child, started earning money from pet portraits as a teenager, and later experienced a major turning point in 2001 when she saw a plein air demonstration and committed to painting from life. Influenced by early California and American impressionists, Kim focuses on value, shape, and expressive color, and credits key workshops, especially learning notan and studying with mentors like Skip Whitcomb, for sharpening her compositional and color skills. She speaks candidly about her long-standing struggles with negative self-talk and imposter syndrome, and how learning to detach from the preciousness of finished paintings and embrace the process has been her biggest creative aha moment. On the business side, Kim emphasizes professionalism, honoring gallery relationships, and balancing what she loves to paint with what she sells, while accepting that each artist's journey and ladder is unique. She advises aspiring artists to trust their instincts, avoid unhealthy comparison, and respect the people working behind the scenes in the art world. And remember, there is always another canvas to paint. Finally, she tells us all about her upcoming shows and workshops. Welcome, Kim, to the Bold Brush Show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Laura. I'm really honored to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. I'm so excited to pick your brain about your art because I absolutely love your compositions so much. And it's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, oh man, this really makes me want to play. It makes me want to play with pastel so bad. That is so funny because every pastel artist I've interviewed or talked to, they're always so encouraging about trying out the medium. Because it really does look magical. Even though the piece that you have behind you, I'm just obsessed with the movement of tone in the sky. I'm like, yes,
thank you.
This is amazing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah. But before we dive in more deeply into your gorgeous compositions, do you mind telling us a bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm a mom and a wife who probably thinks about values and color and light more than is socially acceptable. uh, when you're out and about and people are having a conversation and you're like staring at the landscape or whatever. So
Yeah.
I wanted to be a horse trainer or a long hauled trucker when I was little. I ended up being a flight attendant, which is kind of the same thing as a truck driver. Only my cargo was people. Um, always been a road warrior, loved to travel, particularly driving. When I was a youth, I traveled for horse shows and as a flight attendant, of course, flying around the country. And I love to drive for painting and art events. It's kind of me in a nutshell.
Yes. And you're an avid outdoorsly as well, from what I've seen.
Yes, I love being outside. I love Mother Nature. Yeah.
Yes, and I can tell because it really shows through in your work too, that love for capturing just how gorgeous things can be,
Thank you.
especially your pieces that have to like have this gorgeous crystalline water. I'm so obsessed with those blues. I love it.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Yeah. And actually I really wanted to know because many artists tend to do this for a very long time. We've tend to have started doing this since we were children. Do you mind telling us when you began to follow the path of the artist?
Well, I think, like many of us, including yourself, we started really young. Yeah.
Mhm.
I was always kind of doodling in school and, first got my first drawing published in a newspaper in first grade, and that my parents kept around. I had no idea until probably a few years ago. And then in fifth grade, I won an award painting or drawing a shark of all things. I had been, spending all my little younger years drawing horses and little girls in dresses. Um, and I kind of found out early on about a connection between creating and outside acknowledgement for good or bad. You get that response, and that's kind of a little bit of a dopamine rush. Um, in school, when I was in high school, I started painting horses like with pastels. So I've been working with the pastel medium since I was 15, and started doing horse and dog portraits at that age, and for money. So I kind of had a taste of making money, and you know, when people would ask you to paint their horse, or that emotion that comes when they see it, the painting, they're like, some people would cry and get real excited, and that was a big, uh, I don't know, just something that resonated with me. Um, then I became a flight attendant, and I was still doing the animal portraits. And then I found out as a flight attendant, I wasn't really a natural nurturer. So I would find myself getting the service finished and then finding an empty seat, or heading up to the cockpit to go hang out so I could look outside the window and see all the beautiful land that we were traveling over, or going um, flying the all-nighter from San Francisco to Boston. We go over the northern pole, or towards the northern North America, and you could see the. I just remember this one time when the northern lights were happening, and the ground was just covered in clouds and had these popcorn explosions of it was a big storm, all that covered the continent, or that I could see in front of me. And so you could see these just lightning flashes, and then just as the sun was just starting to create a little bit of peak on the horizon, it was just the most magical time, one of my favorite times ever flying. But it clearly wasn't as in serving others. that was that was my uh, that wasn't my forte. So yeah, then I think this journey that I'm on now really culminated in 2001, when right around that time I was just dabbling in painting landscapes from photographs, and I saw a woman give a plein air demonstration, and it was the first time I really felt like I had to do that. When I studied in school, I studied commercial illustration, and I really felt less than, and not, I wasn't competitive. I had no inner drive to pursue that way of working. And I wasn't very good at the illustration, and it was just a competitive field when I was, and that was right as computers were starting to come into play, and it's just a kind of an awkward place for me. Anyway, I'm kind of jumping around here. So I had become a flight attendant, and 9/11 happened, and I saw this woman give uh, a plein air demonstration. I knew in my gut that I had to start painting from life. So I started taking a class from her in oil. I was still doing the animal portraits. And then I also, as a flight attendant, I had the privilege of, getting to see the Louvre and the Met and Boston Museum, and, um, all these amazing museums. But I loved what I saw, but was really never punched in the gut by of painting until I saw um, museum Oakland Museum exhibition that featured the early California Impressionists, and that's the first time I really was kind of floored and kind of had the wind knocked out of me. This just was everything that, you know, I love the illustrators and looking at the illustrators and, the French impressionists were it was beautiful work, but the California impressionists and then my later study into more American impressionism really just grabbed hold of me, where there's a marriage of tone and value and shape along with broken color and the expressive brushwork and at that point in time I was certainly aware of Sargent and Soroya and Zorn and all those guys, but really hadn't taken. It was just kind of early on in my creative journey, and anyway, so all of that kind of culminated around 9/11, and started working from life, which was a game changer for me, and things really rapidly progressed from there in terms of I would say the quality of my work, my passion, the fact that I started feeling like I had an actual creative bone in my body instead of that I was just able to copy something.
Yes. Yeah. And those are all really important names. And I could totally see how that would affect your work because I think there's something in your strokes. It's expressionistic and impressionistic and abstract, which is very beautiful. I think
Oh,
some of my favorite
thank you.
paintings, you're welcome. Some of my favorite paintings of all time have always had a very wonderful element of abstraction so that the eye itself can kind of like work alongside the piece to complete the image. You know, what
Yeah.
might look up close like a little, I don't know, blurry thing from afar is a tree, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the eye says, yeah, that's a tree. And it's like, no, it's just a little abstract mark on the paper or on the canvas. And I think that's the magic, I think, in painting. And I wanted to ask you because I think your compositions are so wonderful. I think anyone who goes and checks out your work should definitely study how you've
Wow.
laid out your values and how you've laid out your colors, because there is definitely a lot of knowledge that is obvious in your work. How would you say that you developed your skill in composition? You know, like the value composition or actual physical laying out of the elements, color composition. What helped you develop that skill?
I think that the way I learned to see earlier on in my journey was I started studying plein air with this woman, and she was wonderful. And I was doing it in oil with her, and then I started painting this similarly with an underpainting process that I learned painting in oil from her with my pastels. Then I took a workshop with this gentleman by the name of John Barry Raybould, who created after I took the in on location workshop. He was in the process of creating the Virtual Art Academy, which is a great resource for folks. Um, but he during his workshop, I was painting in oil, and he kind of had this, break you down before he builds you up kind of way of working. And he taught us this notan process. And if you back in that time, I didn't really hear the word notan before. And notan, for those who are not familiar with that, is a Japanese term that's loosely translated as black and white design. And he forced us to the first 2 full days of the workshop was creating notans with these pens, dark value, light value, and the middle value, and then the white of the paper. And we had to create compositions with that. And then we couldn't use any color, even when we were the whole thing was plein air. So we were composing in black and white, and I really learned uh, the value, of values. And it was, and it was kind of tough because he would give you gold stars for failing at things. So
Oh,
he
wow.
had a little sheet on every person that was taking the workshop, and you'd get a gold star for not doing well with understanding value or not understanding edges. And so I just remember, you know, feeling good when I got there, and then quickly realizing that I kind of sucked at all this. But then, things, turned around, and it really actually forced me um, to really learn, instead of just kind of doing, just diving in and doing. And I think that was the biggest thing. And then I kind of took that and started breaking apart, my favorite artists' work, living and deceased, that way, and understanding that really simplifying shape and values had a great deal of impact, from across the room. And that's kind of what I carry on in what I teach, um, in during my workshops. Um, and then, you know, just building on all of that, I learned really early on. And then, I took one workshop in pastel. I've only had about 4 or 5 over the course of my career that I've taken. But my first workshop was with an amazing pastelist, and oil painter. His name's Lorenzo Chavez. And I remember going out to taking a 5-day workshop with him on location in Tucson. And I'm from California, where it was all big dark oak trees and dense shadows. And out in the Tucson desert, it was so arid. I felt like I was painting on Mars and had no relationship. So I really had to think about, instead of big dark shapes, how do you compose in terms of value, in a higher key environment? And that kind of led me down a different path. Um, and then a key player in my journey is continued to this day, is Skip Whitcomb, who's a pastelist, oil painter, a mentor, an amazing gifted artist, and the most generous soul, with his knowledge. And he's had I just recently, I think, we never stop learning. I just recently took an online course with him called Orchestrated Color through the Tucson Art Academy, which has just been a tremendous joy for me to explore color. Color's always been very intuitive to me. I think color's been intuitively a strength of mine that I've always had fun with. But just actually learning more about color theory has been really a great asset and confidence builder, and has been really fun.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
never
that's
stop
awesome.
learning, continued,
Yes.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, I was literally going to say the same thing. How with any craft, it's more than a lifetime of things to continue to learn and expand within. So I find that's one of the only reasons I would ever want to become a vampire is to just have endless time to really hone a craft. Because even Michelangelo, when he was in his 80s, said, like, I'm finally learning, like I'm getting somewhere. And it's like, oh no, don't say that. You only
No,
live
it's the
once and it's such a
truth,
short
boy.
life. Yeah.
It's
And I
the
really
truth.
find it cool that your instructor would put a gold star for a failure. Um, because I think at first it can be kind of jarring
It was very, yeah.
yeah, because I can imagine it's like, congrats, you failed. It's like, oh,
Yes.
thanks.
Yeah.
But I think failure is so important. I think we all have such a negative view of it, and that's normal, I think, because we are so used to the whole like being punished for failure. But in the sense of creative work, failure is so important. I think
True. Yeah.
you can't grow without messing it up, like and I think that's one of the hard parts about being a working artist as well, because you try to sell work, you try to create things so that you can put it in a gallery and then it goes to someone's home and it's loved forever. But I think in order to get to that point, you have, a lot of artists, me included, of course, we have to accept that not every piece is going to be nice, but that piece will lead to a better piece, usually, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
And yes, and sometimes it's the pieces that we love the most, that receive the least amount of outside, acknowledgement or whatever you wanna, but I've found that the paintings that, that really have resonated during my journey have always been because, in hindsight, because I've learned something, I tried something new, um, that I was happy with. It was kind of successful in my eyes, but really, in the larger picture scheme of things, that was why I loved it, was because I learned something and I'm like, "Hey, I just added another tool to my toolbox." But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good painting or a solid painting. So I've kinda had to learn that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's also why there's a bit of a balance. I don't know if you've experienced this too, where when you make a painting, sometimes especially it especially happens for the rest of one's life, which is you start a painting and you think, this is the one. This is going to be a masterpiece, or like you feel like you have this like, oh, I'm totally going to make this amazing, and then of course you get shot down by the reality, which is it's always a work in progress. Your works
Yes.
develop as much as you continue to develop as a person and as a crafts
Yeah.
person as well. And yeah, it just the quicker you can understand that, as an artist, one can understand it as an artist, the better it is, because like you said, you might have these exercise pieces or these pieces that, you were hoping would be a masterpiece, but instead they were a lesson. And it's so beautiful to have those lessons and to look back and be
True.
like, man, as much as I suffered through this painting, and I think that's one of those things where like you really do suffer as an artist. So sometimes you suffer so much through your work, but then once it's over and you can set it aside and you look back on it, it's like, man, I overcame this. And I think
Yeah.
that's the part that I've also been trying to really focus on when I'm doing a really difficult piece or trying to overcome a really difficult problem is I find more satisfaction in solving it and overcoming uh now than I used to before. I don't know if you relate to that.
Yes.
Like it's less satisfying now to actually get it right the first time.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you now because it kind of ties in really well with asking you about if you've had any recent aha moments, or if you had like what's your biggest aha moment that you've had over your creative work?
I think the biggest aha moment I've had, was when I gave up. I gave up worrying about the end result or the finished product. Uh, when I took the preciousness out of what I do, um, and realized that it's really truly about the process that gives me the greatest joy. It's the doing of it, the being there, that zen-like state that you end up in when the whole world goes away and you're one with your pigments. I mean, that's really cool. Uh, when I gave that up, when I gave up the feeling that I had to create a painting, um, I realized that there's always another canvas to fill. There's always another piece of paper to have. And I think I mentioned this to you, before, like, knock on wood. If I were to have a studio fire or something catastrophic happen to my beautiful space that I love to be in, um, I think I mean, it would be horrible, and I know this has happened to people. Um, but I just know that I have the capacity of creating more, and that is a beautiful thing, to be able to sit with. But I don't wish that upon anybody, or that's not what I'm trying to get at after here. But it's just that I love the doing. I love being out on location with my feet, my toes sunk in the sand, and while I'm painting at the beach, or having climbed in miles up into the Eastern Sierras to go paint with my friends, and there's just nothing greater than that for me. Other than being a mom and a wife, of course. Yeah,
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 I
yeah,
totally
yeah,
get
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
It's living in the moment and just experiencing life,
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
at
Oh,
because I mean, oh yeah, go for it.
yeah. Sorry. I had one more thing that was kind of an aha moment on a different scale, or on a different in a different way. Um, I had great advice early on in my career from uh, Jean Stern, who is the director emeritus of the Irvine Museum in Southern California. And I remember I'm from Northern California in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I remember, traveling down to SoCal to go see an exhibition of the early California Impressionists, which is his one of his fortes, and what the museum, their permanent collection has an amazing early California Impressionist collection. I remember I, I met him really early on in my career, and um, he became a mentor and a great supporter of my work. He and his beautiful wife Linda um, purchased one of my paintings, and they became collectors. Anyway, I remember he took me around and talked to me about the current show that was up, and then we went back to his office and we were just chatting. And I, being a pastelist, um, at that point in time, I kind of had that wiffle waffle, and I asked him, John, should I be painting in oil to be considered a real artist? Um, I know my friends are going to roll their eyes at this. um, and and he goes, Kim, you're doing beautiful work, and make your mark in your medium. And it was great, very sound advice, and I took that and rolled with it. And that was amazing. And one other thing that kind of an aha thing that helps me move me forward through my journey was I was also kind of lamenting the fact that our art community up here, at least for representational art, is not as prolific as the community is in Southern California, in my opinion. And I remember saying to him, I wish I lived down there so I could be, closer to the things that are, the events and the people and stuff like that. He goes, um, don't be in a hurry. Or it was more than that. It was also, being represented by galleries and about getting into bigger shows, that hunger that we have as when we're young, and wanting to climb a proverbial ladder. He told me, he says, don't be in a hurry for what you think you really want, because that journey leads to galleries and shows, and deadlines leads to time away for the the creative process of experimenting, and that giving yourself time and grace to go play. And that's a whole journey in and of itself. And that really resonated with me, and I've tried very hard to keep my creative process separate from my marketing um, and business side of what I do. I think that keeping those things separate, I mean, they truly overlap, but keeping them separate is as much as you possibly can is really, really important. And I appreciate Jean for his advice way back then, because it's really helped, I think, stabilize that. Doesn't mean it's gone away. That balance is, tough.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you mentioned that because I've also heard that piece of advice, which I've heard a couple people say it is enjoy your anonymity,
Yeah.
especially at the beginning as an artist. I think it's also in reference to anyone who's in a creative career, because early on, you're not tied down by anything, like you said. You're not tied down by deadlines or by the
Yeah.
calendar or
Yeah.
by the 20 workshops that you might have signed up to teach out of
Yeah.
excitement.
Yeah.
And before you realize it, it's been a year or two or three, and you feel like, oh man, I haven't really advanced in my creative work, right? Like it's so
Yeah.
important, like you said, to have that compartmentalization where like you can schedule your experimental work because it and that kind of reminds me of this thing, which is like there's things, especially like you said, when you're early in your career and you're hungry, right, as an artist, there's the things we think we want, and
Yeah.
then there's the things we actually want, right? So and sometimes we don't realize it, right? We don't realize that the thing we actually want is to just keep creating, and we think we want gallery representation. And this actually leads perfectly into my next question about, having this, I like to call it a Venn diagram, like I mentioned to you before, where we have the Venn diagram of what you want to paint and what sells. And then for some people, the crossover between those two circles might be really, really narrow. And for some people, it might almost be a complete circle. How do you balance for yourself creating the work that you want to create and creating the work that will sell?
Well, um, I feel really blessed that I still am passionate and love to paint Mother Nature in all her glory. So it feels natural to continue to feed the folks who run the amazing galleries that I'm in with the work that inspires me. I feel extremely fortunate that I mean I'm one of my most spiritual places to be is Point Lobos in Carmel, or just south of Carmel, California. It's along the California coast, and um, I've been represented by two amazing galleries down there. And Jim Reeser of Reeser Fine Art, who closed his doors because he retired a few years ago. Um, and then I'm now down there with Lorelei and at Carmel Fine Art. And I've always known that if and when that area doesn't speak to me anymore, then I know I'm going to have to part ways because, um, that's what they want. And our gallery owners that represent us, they have their own aesthetic vision and what's important to them. Um, So I feel belt blessed that, that's been a place that I revisit over and over again, that whole our whole coastline and the California landscape. Uh, so, that has been the easy part. I think a difficult part for me has been, when I travel outside my state and am so inspired by the landscape and the environment and the people. And I'm blessed to be in a few galleries outside my state in Montana at a Loom Gallery and in Colorado at Wild Horse. And, trying to stay true to their vision um, and, keeping my best work, for them. They all want your best work, and we don't always have our very best work available because we're still working so hard to get to that point, I guess. Um, but I think the takeaway is respecting your galleries and respecting the folks that run them because they have their own vision. And if you're if you're not willing to compromise, I don't happen to be in a position where I could just dictate what it is that I want to paint. Um, and you know, if you're in that position, with somebody representing you. And my Hugh Skelly gallery too, down in Balboa Island. And, uh, they all have their own vision. So if you don't resonate with what they're wanting, then it's time to be professional and um, excuse yourself or have that conversation with, are you willing to carry something else are you willing to try something new with my work? Have the conversation. Um, and being open and professional with them is really important.
At Boldbrush, we inspire artists to inspire the world because creating art creates magic, and the world is currently in desperate need of magic. Boldbrush provides artists with free art marketing, creativity, and business ideas and information. This show is an example. We also offer written resources, articles, and a free monthly art contest open to all visual artists. We believe that fortune favors the bold brush. And if you believe that too, sign up completely free at boldbrushshow.com. That's BOLDBRUSH show.com. The Bold Brush Show is sponsored by FASO. Now more than ever, it's crucial to have a website when you're an artist, especially if you want to be a professional in your career. Thankfully, with our special link, faso.com/podcast, you can make that come true and also get over 50% off your first year on your artist website. Yes, that's basically the price of 12 lattes in 1 year, which I think is a really great deal, considering that you get sleek and beautiful website templates that are also mobile friendly, e commerce, print on demand in certain countries, as well as access to our marketing center that has our brand new art marketing calendar. And the art marketing calendar is something that you won't get with our competitor. The art marketing calendar gives you day by day, step by step guides on what you should be doing today, right now, in order to get your artwork out there and seen by the right eyes so that you can make more sales this year. So, if you want to change your life and actually meet your sales goal this year, then start now by going to our special link, faso.com/podcast. That's FASO.com/podcast.
I don't know if I actually answered your question.
Oh, you did. I think you
Okay.
definitely did.
Okay, good.
Because, I've heard a lot of artists refer to like relationships with galleries, almost like a marriage or a very, very long-term friendship that you have to nurture. And, sometimes you have to part ways, or sometimes you have to grow together.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important, like I said, important conversation to have, because as artists, we're not just like, for the most part, we're not just this stagnant brand, right? We're humans who are continuing to grow, and
Yeah.
maybe at one point you're exploring a particular type of subject matter. And then suddenly, as time goes on, you realize, man, I really want to explore this other subject matter. But this gallery in particular, I'm afraid that maybe they won't take a risk on this new subject matter.
Yeah.
Or, how do I discuss it with them? Should I find another gallery for this other subject matter? Because there's also like, I think many of us artists, uh, we're lucky, of course, because I mean, living from making beautiful paintings is it's an incredible blessing. Um,
Truth.
so, to maintain that blessing, you also have to realize when you don't want it to become laborious in the
Yeah.
same sense that, if you're going to suffer through forcing yourself to do something the same way you would an office job, you might as well get an office job. Because
Yeah.
at least the office job gives you an actual paycheck
Yeah.
in a constant manner. That's what
Right.
I like to
Right.
say.
And healthcare
So,
benefits.
yes, which is
Yes.
very
Yes.
rough when you're an artist and you're trying
Yes.
to go at it. So yeah, there's a little bit of a balance. And then if you can, like you said, if there's a way to make it more enjoyable for yourself or your painting, like I've heard artists say like, yeah, I stick to figuring out the stuff that I want to do. And then if the gallery says, hey, can you paint us 3 more sunsets, I will do it. Because I know it gives me the paycheck that I need to be able to sit and continue with my experimental work.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, like you said, it's a balance. Hopefully, like I said, that Venn diagram is just a circle though for a lot of people.
Right.
But when it isn't, you got to find ways to supplement, and that's just the tough part of being an artist, unless you're a ridiculously wealthy person already. you know? Um,
That would be okay.
oh, that'd be great. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
ooh, I would just paint whatever the heck I want and start my own gallery.
Be careful
Oh
starting your
man.
own gallery. That's a lot of work, girl.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's a
I would
whole
hire
job in
people.
itself. Okay, there you go.
I would
Okay.
totally hire people. It wouldn't
Yeah,
just be
yeah.
me. There's only one
Okay.
of me. Um,
Okay.
oh man. But I wanted to ask you now, since we're on a little bit more of the topic of business. When you were still a flight attendant, right? What was that like for you when you decided to shift over to your creative work? What was that like for you?
It was, I mean, the whole world, and most particularly the United States, there was a catastrophic event that happened, and uh, the decision was not difficult. It was like, I mentioned earlier, I'm not a natural nurturer. I ended up being a flight attendant because I'm very grateful that my dad is a retired captain for a major airline, and when I got out of school, that I'm so thankful that they were able to help me get through college. I flew for the about 12 years, and then 9/11 happened, and you know that was that was a wake up call for a lot of people. The horror of it, and then the life is short part of, and I I don't even want to say this, but the silver lining around such a horrible event was such that I went back and flew for about the month of October after they let the planes back up in the air, and nobody was flying, and the airline said, "Hey, we're asking for volunteer furloughs," and I raised my hand because I wasn't going to lose any seniority, nor was I going to lose my medical benefits. I was going to lose a paycheck, or I lost my paycheck, but it was an opportunity to see if I could do this full time, and I did, and I've never looked back. And I am so grateful for the opportunities that have come my way since then. Um, but it was a safety net, and so that's kind of how that happened for me. I made the choice, and never looked back, because and I feel strongly, you know, that we are meant to go down a path, and the doors open you know when they're supposed to. So anyway, so that's how it was quick and fast is what it was. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, sometimes life can be that way. It really becomes a moment where you have this very obvious turning point where
yeah,
it's like it's now or never.
yeah,
Because like you said, life is short. You never know
yeah,
what's going to
yeah.
happen tomorrow. We can think that tomorrow's sunrise is, assured for us, but it's not always the case.
True.
Um, and I feel the same way. I try to be like, is this an opportunity that if I don't take it, I'll regret forever? If the answer is yes, I'm just going to do it, right?
Do it. Yeah,
Because yeah, like we said earlier, you only live once, and you gotta take that opportunity if it's the one that you think is right for you.
yeah,
I'm guessing though
yeah.
that in that time when you were furloughed, you just focused on making work. Did you also focus, like, did you already have galleries that you were talking to or were working with, or did you have to rebuild that and like,
No,
make work
right
instead?
around, yeah. Sorry for talking
Oh,
over you.
you're good.
Right around that time, um, it was a lot of things happened all at the same time. I mentioned earlier, I saw that the early California impressionists started painting from life. Um, in 2000, 9/11 happened, and had already been in my first. I was invited to be in a cooperative gallery, and so I was kind of seeing what that felt like being in a gallery. When I, I've never set as a goal to be in galleries. I didn't have a clear vision of what my creative journey was going to be like, moving forward. Um, and so I was already in the Portola Art Gallery at that time, and shoot, I forgot what your question was.
Well,
Sorry.
if no, you're good. It's only if you continued, or like when you were furloughed, how you managed to like, get back into or like start working with galleries and like
Oh, right, right.
what that was
Okay.
like. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you for the
you're good.
the the prompt. Um, we let's see, started working from life two, 2001, 2002. I'm learning my craft and working or being involved with that gallery, and then um, I end up getting pregnant, and then uh, my very first plein air event was Carmel Fine Art, and I was 6 months pregnant, and I remember schlepping around out in Carmel in the sand dunes with my big belly and my art gear and painting, and um, it was a great experience. And I continued to do plein air events, which is kind of how I got my voice, my work out there, and the galleries. I had I just had I've been so blessed. Um, my gallery in Carmel, Jim approached me during an event down in the Laguna Plainer Painters Invitational way back in 2005. He goes, "I really love your work, Kim, and would you be interested in me representing you up in Carmel?" And so, you know, I ended up there bringing him a body of work, and so that has been a blessing. Gosh darn it, I forgot what your question was again.
No, but I mean, it's
I'm
still pretty
going so
relevant.
backwards in
Oh no,
time.
you're good.
Um,
You're good. Yeah, it's just how you built up, your art career after you
yeah,
furloughed. Yeah.
yeah. So it was I think, between the galleries that have been so kind to represent me, and the shows that I've been a part of, I've been part of, I think, like a lot of us, throwing my work out there to see what sticks. I started regionally, or locally, and then regionally, and then nationally. With the pastel medium, we have societies around the world, and like California has 4 or 5 pastel societies, maybe 4, and almost every state has one. And so they're a great resource, a great uplifting organizations to help, um, you know, putting on shows. So my dealers and shows that I've participated in over the years have been um, kind of my access to a collector a collector base. And that's probably that's been my way of moving through this. And I know for each one of us, you, me, my friends, people that are who may be listening to this, just the important thing is to know that each one of our journeys is unique, and there's no one way through this, because uh, there's your way, and it's not the same as anybody else's. And um, I, I I gave a lecture a long time ago at a convention, and I talked about climbing the proverbial ladder. You know, where shows, awards, articles, gallery representation, name branding, notoriety. Um, those are the rungs of the ladder that we kind of want to climb, so that we get our work out there and create collector base, and that outside acknowledgement of our work. Again, remember I said earlier that keeping that separate from your creative side is really important. But I caution folks to really avoid climbing someone else's ladder. Relish your own climb, and don't be in a hurry to get to the top of your ladder, because that's when it's time to go perfect your golf swing and not your brushstroke. That's so corny.
Oh no, but
I can't believe I said that.
oh no, but it's
That's so
perfect.
funny.
It's
Um,
perfect. Yeah, and
um,
it's such a
yeah,
great point. I think I was mentioning this earlier too, like how you know, there's something about making work that also speaks to yourself, right? It's the work that you care about, because if you're painting, you know, someone else's work, right? You're imitating someone else, which is totally fine. I mean, we all start with
yep,
imitation to some
yeah, yeah,
extent. That's how we learn to write. That's how we learn language. And art being a language, that's how we learn to paint and express ourselves. But if that's all you're doing, like you're saying, climbing someone else's ladder, you're setting yourself up for failure. I mean,
yeah.
there's after so many years of betraying yourself like that, right? Betraying the actual deep message, the ones that come through, you're gonna feel empty. You're gonna feel, it's
Well,
inevitable
and
because it's not your dream.
right, and also climbing somebody. I think I think about climbing somebody else's ladder is where it's more about comparing your journey to somebody else's, where you see somebody being real successful and you get frustrated because you're not climbing the rungs the same way as that other person. And so being aware that it's your own journey that you need to stay in and relish. And I think yeah, no, it's your personal ladder to climb, not somebody else's, and to do your best to keep the comparison out of it, because it's so easy to compare. And if you're not getting into shows and you're not getting acknowledgement, um, that doesn't mean that your work's bad, awful, or a failure. It just means that that's just somebody else's opinion, and the most important opinion is how you feel about your own process. The takeaway, I think, is that if you're not in love with your own process, then none of the rest of it matters. Not the likes, not the hearts, not the followers. None of that matters if you don't love what you're doing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to follow the path of how you see somebody else, quote unquote, making it, because you also don't know what's behind the scenes of that artist's dialogue that they say to themselves. That's a whole nother thing, your internal dialogue that happens. I have a lot of negative dialogue that has run throughout my journey, and that whole feeling of that imposter syndrome too has been run all through and still does to this day. little little devil on my shoulder that I'd like to flick off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway.
Um, yeah, yeah, totally. And that's why, it's if you have the devil on one side, right, telling you all these horrible things, which most of us artists do, it's better to just like go listen to the other side, the little angel on the other side, and like try to pay attention to that one a
Yeah,
little bit more. To some extent, it is good to be aware of where you can improve, but not to the point
always.
where you're crying yourself to sleep every night. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I love that you
Well,
mentioned, not chasing someone else's, like level of success or how quickly they've ascended, because that's just their path, like you can't.
yeah,
Sometimes life will throw you into an even more amazing path than you can ever imagine.
you have to
And
stay
that's
open
why,
to it.
yes,
Yeah, you
exactly.
have to stay
You have
open to
to,
that. Yeah,
yeah, stay receptive and open, because a little bit like I said earlier, there's what you think you want, and then
yes,
there's life surprising you with something even more grand or something even
yeah,
more magical that like
I
your, I don't know,
agree.
18, 20-year-old self could never have imagined, because life of course continues, and
Yeah,
keeps going and going, and when you think you've seen it all, and you think you know it all, it surprises you again with something even
yeah,
nicer and even more
yeah,
amazing.
truth.
Yeah.
Truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I did also want to ask you, since we're on the topic of, like some of the difficulties of being an artist, besides, the creative aspect, financial aspect, what would you say is one of the hardest things about being a full-time artist that no one really talks about?
All I can speak is from my own journey, and I already touched upon it, and that's been a negative internal dialogue that I've battled since since college. I remember, I studied commercial illustration, and I cut my way through classes because I never felt good enough. And it was very competitive. There was a lot of in a lot of ways, what felt, um, it doesn't necessarily mean it was actually what was happening, but it's how I felt. But the harsh critiques, the never feeling like I could draw well enough, like comparing myself to the other people around me. It was a and that I built on that, and still to this day I kind of battle with that. Not again, it's the comparing that is always going to tear you down. It's not going to keep you it's not going to allow you to rise up. So um, you know that imposter syndrome, when the successes that I've been truly amazingly blessed with over the years, in my journey, uh, whew, I've had some wonderful things happen, and but still you're like, is it for real? Did I just is that for real? And it still amazes me, today when something beautiful happens, such as this conversation that I'm allowed to have with you, and share my journey, with you and whoever's maybe listening. Um, I remember, back, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, I was been part of a major national show, and the curator of the show um, she is a force and an amazing woman in her own right. Um, but I remember her sharing with me, you know, bring me something different. Send me something different than what you normally do. This is a place to try something new. And then she invited me to channel another artist's work, and it threw me for a loop. And it really tapped into. She had no idea. She had no clue, but it tapped me into like a couple year, um, I don't know, sadness wrapped around what I was doing. In that, um, I it tapped into all the negative things that I've been saying about myself to myself quietly, that I wasn't good enough, that I needed to do things differently. I needed to paint differently, be somebody else. I wasn't good enough. That she never said that, but she just pushed that trigger for me. And it took me a couple of years really to get out of it. And funny enough, um, she's the same person that I had a conversation with, and I call it my vomitus interruptus moment, where I was talking to her on the phone. She lived in a different state from me. And I had one of those not pouring out of my nose, hiccuping, crying sessions on the phone with this professional woman. I can't believe I'm sharing this with you guys, with you. And she literally said, Kim, I'm clearing my desk for you right now. Because I was just like beside myself, and I let it all out, all the insecurities, all the blah, 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 blah. And it just was a cathartic moment. And it was amazing that it happened with the same person um, who was slightly the devil on my shoulder, even though she had no idea until then. Um, anyway, and it was all me. It had nothing to do with her. It had nothing to do with her. It was all my shit. Excuse my language, but that's the truth. Sorry for my
Yeah.
potty
Oh,
mouth. Yeah.
oh no, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
It is warranted. Because it does feel that way. And I
Yeah.
relate so hard to that. I think I've had, much like you know, those moments of mirroring my own pain, suffering, insecurity onto someone else who really reflects it very clearly, even though they don't realize it. I've
Yeah.
also had those moments, and they become almost like a symbol for that pain and that frustration. And of course, I've also had my breakdowns about it because I think one of the hard things too about being an artist is sometimes, like, again, you think you want something, and then turns out the thing you actually want has to kind of like surface over time. And I felt that way very much about going to academic school, where I always tried so hard to fit in. I tried so hard to, you know, fit in with my peers and be admired also by my peers, and it just never freaking worked. And it came to the point where I realized, man, you know, it's like a square peg in a round hole. You know, there comes a point where you just can't force yourself to
Yeah.
fit into a mold that just isn't for you. And the quicker you realize,
That's
man,
important.
yeah, I need to just let myself use these tools that I've gained from, you know, learning these skills and apply them in a way that makes me happy and get myself out of this bubble that I've
Yes.
decided I should fit into, right?
Yes.
And that's been the hardest thing to deal with. And you know, hearing uh your experience, it's like, oh man, I resonate so hard with that
Yeah.
little devil. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you'll never be able to do this, or oh, you keep failing at this one thing that all your peers can do already, or like, you know, just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Ah, there
Yeah.
comes a point you
It's
just
a
gotta stop it.
yes. Oh, stop it. You say
Yeah,
stop it. There's
yeah,
that I just have to share this really quickly.
yeah.
I was working on a lecture that I had mentioned earlier, and I had a friend, Susan, who was helping me along with it. She'd kind of edit and stuff like that, and I've had to work on being less self-deprecating verbally, and also saying apologizing for everything, which is kind of a thing that I've done forever. I'm so much better at it, but Susan helped me because she made me listen to this Bob Newhart, one of his comedy sessions where he's a psychiatrist. And for those folks who are listening to this, and you have, if you find yourself apologizing or consistently, or being self-deprecating, or find something that you're repeating that drives yourself crazy, check out his episode called "Stop It" because it is hilarious. And the "stop it" uh, is a term or a phrase that I now use for myself to help me stop it. It's
That's so
great.
funny because
I promise you guys.
yeah, no, I'm gonna link it into the show notes so our very
Oh, great.
self-deprecating,
Yes. Yeah.
people-pleasing other listeners might
Get.
also check it out. I think it's so funny because I didn't realize that you were gonna say stop it, and I was literally just saying like stop it organically. Like, yeah, that's so now I want to watch
Yeah.
it so I can.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
hilarious.
yeah, that's
It's a great
awesome.
way to reinforce that. And psychologically, it shuts the brain down. When you say stop it, you're, it's like it stops that cycle. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
because it's so easy to just get caught in that loop.
Yeah.
It just repeats itself,
Yeah.
and then it feeds itself too, which is awful. That's why it's so hard to break it. But yeah, totally. I know you've also given a ton of advice here. But do you have any final advice for someone out there who wants to make a living from being an artist?
Um, I guess I have a couple things that I'd like to share, if that's okay. Uh, I think I think it's super, super important to be professional in every element of the business side of what we do. I know that's pretty silly to say, but having been on the receiving end of shows, and doing a little bit of volunteer work that I have done, um, and realizing that people don't read their prospectuses all the way through and follow, what's going to help the volunteers and the folks behind the scene that are working their tails off for you to submit your painting to a show. Um, just so always read and follow your prospectuses, honor the deadlines. Um, don't be one of those that don't be a artist cat where you have to be chased down to get what the folks that are working hard need to put the show on. Um, I recommend be proactive about pursuing your own like articles. I was the my very first article that I had in the Pastel Journal, which is when I was pregnant or had just had Ryan, um, was came from me because at that point I'm so old that people weren't writing about motherhood and being artists, that you wouldn't find articles like that in magazines. And I approached the editor, um, and asked if there could be an article written about being pregnant, or um, and she like grabbed it. She said, "Yeah, let's do it." And so I was able to kind of be a part of my first article. So know that if you have an idea or you're seeing something that's important to you that's not being written about, it's fair game to go approach an editor or say, "Hey, I've got this idea." Write it yourself. The new ideas are always out there. So um, I again respect the volunteers working behind the scenes. Um, I think you mentioned how to approach galleries and stuff like that. That's a hard kind of a hard thing. I've been very fortunate to have not really had to go down that path yet. I'm sure that will happen in my future. But I think it's things are so much different now. Going in with a portfolio and as, assuming that there's so many artists out there now, and so few galleries, and they're closing fast. Um, that if you find a space that you really want to be a part of, go be a part of the community first. Go introduce yourself to the gallery, and get to know what the space is all about. And for every individual artist out there, there's an individual gallery owner who has their own creative vision, and it doesn't always mean that your work is going to fit in with their space. So get to know what that is. um, and then I have kind of some personal advice, uh, especially now. Our world is constantly changing, and I feel very strongly that happiness comes from within. It doesn't come from likes or hearts or your followers. Um, and I think it's so important to trust your instincts, as they will lead to solid work, that will then lead to doors opening down the path that you are meant to walk, not somebody else. And I think I said it earlier, but remember that there's always another canvas to paint on.
Yes, yes. I'm so, so, so happy that you mentioned trusting yourself, because that really ties into everything that we've been talking about. Because even just like you said, if you lost everything in a fire, you have to trust that all of the work that you've done, it wasn't just a fluke, right? It came from
Right.
you and you can do it again. And building that self-trust is so important as an artist, is trusting that, hey,
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
figure
Yeah.
this out. I might not know what the heck is going on. I might not know what the problem is right now, but I can trust my skills and myself and what I'm capable of to
Yeah.
figure it out,
Yeah.
because that's all
Absolutely.
you can really do. Yeah. You won't have all
Absolutely.
the answers, but you can
Yeah.
try darn hard to try to get them. Oh man. Yeah. And then I wanted to ask you also because I absolutely love your work, and I think anyone out there should go
Um,
check it out. Do you have any upcoming exhibitions or shows or workshops that you would like to tell us about?
sure. Let's see. I just finished teaching a workshop a couple weeks ago, and I do about two a year, maybe sometimes three. But my next workshop will be in Boise, Idaho, in the end of September, beginning of October, and it's through the Pastel Society of the West Coast. I'm really excited to get up in that neck of the woods and play. And then I'll be judging. There's a plein air event in Eagle, Idaho, that I'll be judging that event kind of during the same time. I've got an upcoming show that I'm very honored to be a part of in Ojai, California. It's called Ojai, Ojai Mystique at the Ojai Valley Museum. And there's 19 nationally renowned artists that'll have a major studio piece and a plein air piece. And that's going to be this coming April. I think it opens the 17th and runs through the beginning of August, I think. I'm brand new and very excited and truly honored to be part of the Plein Air Painters of America. Um, they're one of the first plein air painting groups in the United States, and they're having a show at the Thunderbird Foundation of Arts in Mount Carmel, Utah, um, called Heart of America. And it's let me see my notes. I wrote the notes down here. Coast to Coast Inspiration from America's premier outdoor painting group, and that'll be in May and opens the 15th at the Maynard Dixon Gallery and Studio. Um, and then so excited to be going back there again for a show in September with my Wild Women group. I'm part of seven other amazing women artists. We had a dynamite show that opened last summer at Illume Gallery in Montana, and now we're going to have our second show um, at the Maynard Dixon Gallery and Studio um, with my buddies. I'm going to list them: Shanna Kuntz, Elizabeth Robbins, Lori McNee, Stephanie Marzella, Cindy Byrne, and Ramona Youngquist. And I think most of them uh, have FASO websites. So
Yeah.
we can find, if I say their names, you can find them on Fine Art Studio online. Um, and yeah, I'm represented in with my glorious uh, galleries in Carmel at Carmel Fine Art, Hugh Skelly Gallery in Balboa Island, which is in California, Holton Frames and Studio, which is in Berkeley, California, Wild Horse Gallery in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, Illume Gallery West in Montana, and the Thunderbird Foundation for the Arts in Mount Carmel, Utah. So that's a lot.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm very
that's
grateful
awesome.
for
More
them.
opportunities to
Very
see your
grateful.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And then do you mind telling us what your website is?
Yes, it's way too long to spell out, but it's my maiden name and my married name. It's kimfancherlordier.com, and it takes you to the Fine Art Studio online website that I have. But if you just Google my name, Kim Lordier, because of FASO, it comes right to the top of the search engine, which I'm really grateful. And then I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram's K Lordier Art, and then Facebook is I think Kim.Lordier. So there you have it.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I will also be including all your links in the show notes so people can check out your gorgeous work. And of course, if they watch the video, they will have seen how beautiful your work is. And I'm so grateful to have had you on the show, Kim. Thank you
Oh,
so, so much.
thank you for having me, Laura. I really I'm very honored and appreciate this time and the opportunity, and I'm excited for your personal journey down your creative path. So thank you for sharing a tiny bit of that with me.
Of course. And thank you for being honestly a lot of inspiration that I think I really needed. So
Oh, good.
thank you. Yeah. Thank you to everyone out there for listening to the podcast. Your continued support means a lot to us. If you've enjoyed the episode, please leave a review for the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or leave us a comment on YouTube. This helps us reach others who might also benefit from the excellent advice that our guests provide. Thank you.